Welcome to Black Entertainment Television.
Already, once again.
I can't get it off my mind. The black people. I can't stop talking about them. It's my see, I keep having the AirPods in. All right, let's get serious now. We have news to discuss.
Yeah.
World events, brown Nazis, all sorts of stuff is happening out there. And it's up to us to offer intelligent, informed commentary so that people can make up their own minds about what to do about brown Nazis and the like. But where would you like to start?
Well, yeah, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, it's not the truth until you hear it from me.
This is a truth-telling and truth-seeking program. Everyone who's watched that knows this. We screen out for untruth and misinformation.
And we are on YouTube this week, although...
Oh, speaking of screening out misinformation. Yes. I'm sorry, YouTube. I will never speak about that extremely important issue in American politics again. I don't know, the thing that like determines who the leadership of the most powerful country in the world is. Just I won't mention that issue. I'm sorry. I apologize. And I hope Rumble kicks your fucking ass.
Yeah, and the chat last week in Rumble was a blast. So I'm hoping that stays up this time.
No, I think we're finding an audience on Rumble too. You can see it. And I'm thrilled about that because I think it's pretty obvious, especially seeing what happened on Rumble with us the last few weeks. It's now very clear that YouTube has been suppressing us. We just have not been. We stopped growing at a certain point, and then we just plateaued, and we wouldn't budge past that point. And I'm sure they just aren't putting us in the algorithm. Whereas on Rumble, I think we've quadrupled in like a month. So our audience. So yeah, I mean, and you can just sort of feel the vibe over there. Like you can see the algorithm working better. The stuff that they recommend to me is actually much more on point for what I want to watch on YouTube, down on YouTube. Rumble's not, its features are not nearly as good. I mean, the functionality is not nearly as good, but in terms of watching videos and, it's fine. It's perfectly fine. And it's actually so far, at least truly committed to free speech. I think their policy, they only disallow things that are illegal. And I guess porn. I guess there's no porn on there, but so yeah, I mean, in terms of speech, like political speech, I think they say the only thing they ban is what's illegal, which is perfect. Yeah,
and we do want to show some love to the people out there on Odyssey too. We're getting some support there as well.
I mean, Odyssey was our first choice, and we wished to hell that it had worked out. But the Security Exchange Commission had a different idea and crushed our friend Jeremy Kaufman, who's the founder of Odyssey and Library, and who's going to be at Icarus Fest also, by the way, and who's been on Unregistered, and who's a really brilliant, provocative guy who, I mean, he's even more provocative than I am. But anyway, yeah, the SEC came after them. And I don't know the ins and outs of this. I don't know the details of it, but basically, I mean, Jeremy told me that they're bankrupt. They've been annihilated by the federal government. And I can't, I mean, I'm unclear as to what the Fed's argument was, but can anyone imagine, I mean, a reasonable argument for why Library and Odyssey shouldn't exist?
Well, I mean, Odyssey's still working. It's still functional. We still have people following and supporting us there. The thing is, I don't know the specifics of the case too well anymore, but the big thing with crypto regulation in general is that the SEC fails to adequately classify what is a security and what isn't a security. So especially when it comes to tax season, like what just happened, we are completely up in the air as to what is and what isn't a security and what laws apply to things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so people need to know what Library and Odyssey are, and I'm not 100% sure what they are, but as I understand it, Library is essentially a database similar to YouTube, but one that is user generated, right?
And it's blockchain.
Or it's more like Pornhub, right?
Well, I don't know about that, but
well, no,
I mean, yeah.
Can anyone upload to Pornhub? Isn't that how it works?
Anybody can upload to YouTube too, but
well, that's right. Okay, right. Anyway, so it's blockchain is the difference, right? So it's there's no algorithm. It's utterly transparent because it's on the blockchain, right? Am I getting it right?
Yeah.
And it can never be deleted. That's the other thing that Jeremy kept insisting, that nothing can ever be deleted permanently because it's the blockchain. So no video can ever be canceled. Nothing can be canceled. No video artifact can be canceled, which is really something.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm sure that's why they banned it. But that couldn't have been their argument.
No, it had more to do with the cryptocurrency that the library token that Odyssey runs on. Yeah.
Oh.
That's how the SEC got involved. Yeah.
Oh, I wasn't even aware that there was a crypto token.
Oh yeah, it's
oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I think it had to do with like it wasn't an ICO type thing, but it was something like that, to where the SEC went after them for like money laundering, something like that, where it's like, oh, you launched this token and then you used that as a security and it was completely unregulated and we had to crush it, something like that.
Right. Huh. So it had nothing to do with speech.
No, but it was a way to suppress the operational. It was a way to go after the operation of library, to go after the free speech platform that is Odyssey.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, again, it's sort of academic now. That little anarcho-libertarian dream is over, at least for the moment. It's a YouTube on the blockchain is what we're talking about. Like a completely open access, open-ended, unmoderated YouTube.
Yeah.
A YouTube with zero boundaries or limits or anything.
Well,
so
Odyssey itself is somewhat moderated. Like you can't put anything illegal on there, and you can't, like all the other platforms.
Right. They have to do that.
The blockchain that supports it, anybody can run library, so anybody can access anything that was posted up there. So it has a level of censorship resistant security up there.
Yeah, I mean, it's moderated. I'm just saying it's moderated, as I understand it, only for the illegal content. In other words, they're only looking for that. They're only looking for videos and banning videos that are illegal, because they have to, of course, because they'd get shut down much faster than the SEC did if they put up illegal stuff. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm just saying, all that matters right now is that they are pretty much out of business, or about to be, or I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but he told me they're bankrupt, and he talks about it as if it's over. And so, although that's privately, I don't know if I just divulged anything, but I mean, I don't think he would tell me stuff on email that couldn't be public anyway about the company. But yeah, it's just it's just a huge loss. I mean, so Elon taking over Twitter, although he's not committed to free speech. I mean, how many things has Elon banned that were basically because of his own peccadillos about a particular subject?
That's what Ye proved. Ye proved that day one. Yeah.
Oh, exactly. Boom. Right. I forgot about Ye. Ye was like the prime example of this. That's right. Totally innocent. My goodness. Who cares what Ye says about Jews? Anyway, yeah. But I mean, there's far even worse examples. I can't think of anybody offhand, but I know there have been, right? There have been many people have been banned from Twitter by Elon directly because, like, nothing that necessarily violated the TOS, just something he didn't like politically, So, I mean, he's clearly, he's operating not according to principle, is my point. He's definitely, this is very, very subjective handling of a media platform, right? It's not like he's applying the Odyssey standard of just illegal stuff gets cut out. It's, he's shown very clearly that all sorts of political speech will not be allowed on Twitter still. It's just the difference is, instead of like stuff that offends woke liberal sensibilities, it's stuff that offends Elon Musk's sensibilities. And but the good news is that the range of the latter is much, much, much narrower than the range of the former. Elon wants to ban far fewer things than the left liberals did. right? So overall, it's a net gain for free speech, I'd say, Elon on Twitter, but it's not quite the utopia that a lot of people who I admire pretend it is. And I'm just listening to that funny ass Twitter Spaces with DeSantis and Elon and David Sachs, who I've become a big fan of recently. It was disappointing, I gotta say. I mean, I still think David Sachs is really very, very smart, and I like a lot of his politics, but he's doing this with RFK too. And I've seen it with a lot of people who I consider to be very smart, like Robert Barnes. I mean, Robert Barnes and David Sachs, I think, are damn near the best commentators on the right these days. And they both are in love with a political candidate. Sachs is in love with two of them. He likes RFK and DeSantis. Robert Barnes is in love with the entire Kennedy family. He said so. It's really disappointing. And, you know, my thing about the Kennedys, it really makes me crazy, but it's not so much the Kennedys. It's like I just think you can't be a persuasive commentator or political intellectual if you have that kind of sort of familial or romantic attraction or attachment to a candidate for president, to a politician. You have to keep your psychology disentangled from any politician. The second a journalist begins to identify with, sympathize with, support a politician, their reporting on that politician goes out the window. And I mean, it's always going to be propaganda, even if it's very subtle. So these guys, I think they're making a huge mistake, and there's a bunch of super smart people. And again, I think these guys are the best. Like, I love listening to them. I listen to them every chance I get. I look for them. I listen to everything I can find that they say. I think they're right about like almost everything from my perspective. But they and a lot of people get very excited about political candidates. The only one I would say this is an exception for would be, or for whom this is an exception, is Ron Paul. Only because Ron Paul basically ran as an anti-statist. Like, he was basically saying, when I get in there, I'm going to dismantle the entire thing. So you weren't really voting for Ron Paul for president. You were voting for Ron Paul, the destroyer, right? So, but these guys want these cats to manage, you know. They want RFK or DeSantis to actually manage in the nitty gritty, the details, and including in stuff that's like quite intimate in our lives, very, you know, cultural stuff, right? Which DeSantis is famous for, regulating cultural things. And I think he's gotten a super bad rap on that. I think what he's done in Florida about like CRT in the schools and stuff is like completely innocent and fine. I mean, it's like, what? Who cares about elementary school kids reading anything really? But like, certainly, like, why would you care that they can't read like sex education or like the history of oppression and why they are the oppressors, right? I mean,
well, why are you upset that these books aren't, like, all it boils down to is that this isn't in their curriculum and this isn't in their school libraries.
Right.
Like, every school library and every school board has the right to discern.
Here's to me the reason that is the only reason I care about, that makes it like a slam dunk. Everyone should be for this. What DeSantis did was he gave power to the local parents to decide what books are being taught in their schools that their kids go to. Like, how can you be against that? How could you possibly be against the parents of a school not having control over what is taught in the school? Like, I can't understand that for a second, right? But that's what he did. That's what he did. And of course, there are pockets of Florida that are quite conservative, right? It's an interesting state in that way. There's like a quite super, not lefty, but heavy liberal scene in Florida. A lot of New York Jews live there, and they totally affected or infected the political culture there. But there's a lot of pockets of hardcore conservatives in Florida who, of course, won't want any of that shit in their kids' school. So anyway, and then the thing with Disney, I mean, he's dead on several issues. The thing with Disney, like, if you're on the this is what I like about this. If you're on the left or you're a libertarian, either one of those, you have to love what he's doing with Disney. The left, by the way, used to hammer Disney. In fact, I think DeSantis said this. Of course, it was like this huge corporation that spewed out all this like bourgeois propaganda, to perpetuate capitalism and misogyny and racism. I mean, that's what the left said about, and it was this massive corporation that owned this town and ran a company town. And oh my God, pretending to be family friendly. The left is the one who taught us about the evils of Disney. And specifically, and I love that DeSantis used this word in the spaces, the Disney corporatism. I mean, giving a company political power, essentially sovereignty over a town in which they operate, that is fascism. I mean, there it is. I mean, they have their own police force, for God's sake.
I mean, that does sound like a libertarian paradise, though.
And you know what? Jeremy Kauffman, actually, he's the only person I've seen having a dissenting view on that. He says, no, this is good. This is a company town. This is exactly what we should want, right? Well, I don't know. I'm not sure I need to get too deep into this right now, but I guess we do need to get deep into it, because I just said, I got to think more about this. I'm not sure, but do we want, it's more like, I think it would be.
If Walt Disney was still alive, it could be Galt's Gulch right there. Like, if it was, the real entrepreneurial spirit living alive there,
Well, it's that Disney was not just getting, I think this is right, not just getting sovereignty, but they're also getting tremendous assistance from the state and the feds in all sorts of ways.
Preferential treatment, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like, they didn't pay taxes, but their competitors would pay taxes, right? Mm-hmm. For instance, that's a big one. So, and I'm sure the regulations, I'm sure there's an entire like Disney set of regulations in Florida, like carve outs for them for everything. I don't know, man. It's interesting. What are libertarians saying about this? Aren't they for DeSantis on this?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah. Okay. So you and Jeremy are 5D chess on this shit. You're like the fucking fountainhead. Mm-hmm. You're just like the soul. Like, you're like the essence of libertarian thinking. You went deep and pure on me. I can't go there yet.
Mm-hmm. The problem though is
we should get Jeremy on right now. I should call Jeremy. Get on, explain yourself, boy.
The problem is though, the benevolent dictator died. Walt Disney, the guy who had the vision, is kind of dead, and it's bland corporatism now. It's ESG, DEI, standard propaganda there instead of that early 20th century spirit.
Do you know that Disney movies are the reason I had a child?
Really?
Because I thought that's all it would be, hanging out, watching Disney movies on the couch. And I grew up loving them as a kid myself, just loving them. And I had sort of an enduring affection for them, even though I didn't watch them. But I was like, I can just go back to watching Disney movies with that. That's what it'll be. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was truly the fantasy. And it turned out it was similar to that, raising a child, but not exactly that. Yeah.
Wow. Man.
Okay.
Dang. So you were in the Twitter space.
Back to DeSantis and Disney. Mm-hmm. Well, no, that was actually to your point about the quality of Disney having declined radically. When I was born, Disney was making amazing movies. 101 Dalmatians. Like, I was born in the height of the Disney greatness. When my son was born, it was still quite good. So like Aladdin, I guess, kind of thing, and not yet too politicized, not like it is now, right? Mm-hmm. It was never explicit politicization. But yeah, now, although I would say it was a notch below what it was when I was growing up. So there was a decline even then. You could see it just in the quality, the intelligence. Yeah. But now it's hollowed out.
Yeah. The Pixar movies are good still. Like the storytelling in Coco and Encanto and all those movies are great. They just use like in the same way that like Disney would use German fairy tales as their aesthetic backdrop. They just use like Colombian culture and heritage or Mexican.
I'm not counting Pixar. I'm not counting Pixar. Pixar is the most brilliant filmmaking I've ever seen. Period.
But like, the worst piece of Disney propaganda, I think it might be an offshoot of Pixar, but Frozen is the worst thing they've ever produced.
I've never seen it. I've heard all about it, but yeah.
I haven't seen it, but I just noticed a massive cultural shift in 2014 when that movie came out.
Yeah. I'm totally sick of the whole animation thing. I hate it. I want it to get the fuck away from me.
I want hand-drawn animation to come back. We need to get some kids in sweatshops, and we need to get some brilliant hand-drawn animators out again.
Yeah. And Hollywood, big studio stuff is horrendous these days. However, Pixar is the shining counterexample. Like, it is stupendously brilliant, I think, in every way. Like, I would say there's at least a half a dozen Pixar movies that I would put on my top 50 all-time list or something. I mean, just like the best filmmaking, bar none, by far. There's no one even close second. And that's in all genres of film, not just animation. I mean, they're shockingly brilliant, I think. But then the rest of the whole industry is just like going into the tank, into the toilet. But
if you want to go on a good, if you want to Netflix and chill with your girl and introduce her to the Unabomber Manifesto, just get her to watch WALL-E.
I guess I haven't seen WALL-E.
Yeah.
What's the punchline here? Like, why WALL-E?
It's a dystopian future where it's basically the future is idiocracy, like ramped up to 11, where everybody's in giant scooters with TVs, slamming slop down their throats, and basically the only humanity exists in this programmed robot trying to find love.
Just spilled my drink. Outstanding work.
Yeah.
I'll just let it spill. Yeah, so it's water. No one panic. It's fine. Yes. Well, anyway, so I think that DeSantis, he will I'd actually like to see study of to what extent Florida actually has supported Disney through subsidies, if there are subsidies or any. I mean, obviously they provided the highway system and the road system to Disney. I mean, so that's a big subsidy. But because I'm wondering how much, to what extent, because DeSantis called it corporatism. So, and he knows what corporatism is. So that means an arrangement by which the government supports the entity that it also manages, the private entity that it also manages, that they're co-constitutive, they're codependent. So I'm wondering to what extent Florida's support for Disney has basically subsidized them and enabled Disney to put out shit content and be basically, shielded to some extent from market forces because of their subsidization by the state of Florida. And I'm sure by the feds too. Anyway, just a speculation. People can look into that and report back to me.
Well, the big thing now is, the Disney Corporation is like forcing all these engineers to go back to LA. They moved a ton out to Orlando, and then to fight DeSantis, they told them all to move back to LA. So that's a huge issue right now.
Speaking of Florida and minorities, we've got to talk about the big issue of the day, which is that Florida is not only home of Ron DeSantis, it is also a very dangerous place for Black people. And the NAACP has issued an official travel advisory warning for potential travelers to the state of Florida, warning that it is unsafe. Do you have a quote? Do you have like the quote from the actual statement? It's unsafe. It's unsafe for Black people because, and this is the part that's really awesome, because they don't teach CRT in the schools. I mean, DeSantis just explained this today or yesterday and said, oh no, of course they actually they added a requirement to teach the history of racial segregation and discrimination. And that slavery, of course, is still taught. There's actually people, Michael, do you know this? There's people running around saying that they're not allowed to teach about slavery. That's what they say on MSNBC.
Yeah.
Like casually on MSNBC, they actually say that DeSantis passed a law making it illegal to talk about slavery in schools. I mean, it's incredible. Well, like the distortion. I can't even believe it. And yeah, I mean, and also, of course, if you're going to have public schools, state-owned schools, and the people through their elected representatives want to affect the curriculum taught in those schools, isn't that democracy? Hello, progressives. Hello, like, don't you want the people to have the power over their kids' education? I thought you were for people's power. I thought you were for, like democracy, grassroots democracy, like parents deciding what is taught in their kids' schools. Like, how could the left be against that?
Mm-hmm. Well, and these asinine, like, people who are so hung up on being fact checkers will run away with the line that it's illegal to talk about slavery in Florida or Texas, for example, or the Don't Say Gay bill. They call it the Don't Say Gay bill when it literally was like, don't teach about homosexuality and alternative lifestyles until 3rd grade. Like, wait until the kid is 8 before you start talking about alternative lifestyles.
3rd grade.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just that no kid cares about anything like that. Mm-hmm. No kid that age. I mean, they're just totally uninterested in it. It's just like, wouldn't make any sense to them. They wouldn't know what you're talking about. That's what's so strange. But, like, it is, of course, grooming that they're attacking here. I mean, that is absolutely grooming. It's just not the kind of grooming the QAnon fools think it is. It's political grooming. Of course, that's why you teach gender ideology really soon. Because you know what? And I've talked about this quite a lot. They discovered, and when I say they, I mean the Democratic Party liberal globalists, for lack of a better term. They discovered that LGBTQAI++++, whatever S, really motivates a lot of their base. Like, those issues turn them on. And I've told many people this many times, that the base of the Democratic Party, the people who really push it forward, like with energy, money, and Twitter presence, is not news to most people. White, middle class, stay-at-home moms, college educated. And they, as I've said before, all know gay guys. They all know gay guys because they're serviced by gay guys. Their hair is very likely done by a gay guy. If they had their house decorated, it was very likely done by a gay guy. So middle and upper middle class women, that's who they are. They all have service people servicing them in various ways. And so the gay men are big in those industries. And so they all have gay friends and have always who they love because they talk to them unlike their husbands, about like deep emotional stuff. Right? I'm not kidding. Am I making stuff up? Everyone has seen this happen with like damn near every upper middle class woman in this country. That's what happens. They have a gay friend they talk to about stuff they don't talk to with their husband. Standard stuff in the upper middle class and upper class. So MSNBC and CNN and New York Times and that ilk found out that those women feel strongly about gay stuff. And so this is why they've been pushing like hell the rainbow flag and then the trans stuff, which is adjacent to the gay stuff. And what did they do when they needed to do regime change in Russia back in the early 2000s when Putin was just getting power? They started hitting him with what? Oh, yeah, he assassinated some journalists, which he didn't, by the way. But mostly he's anti-gay. There's an anti-gay law in Russia, and there's hooligans beating up gay men in Russia because of Putin. Putin's got death squads after gays. I mean, that's what was said. And all those stay-at-home moms who watch MSNBC and hate Trump so much responded. And they're like, oh, we hate this fucking Putin. And so when 2016 comes along, right, and the Democrats need to convince these people that like the impossible happened for bad reasons, they're like, oh yeah, it's Putin. They're like, oh, Putin bad, Trump bad, done. Logical syllogism completed. Got that demographic. The housewife is with us. So the LGBT thing is gigantic for them.
Well, remember the hysteria right after Trump got elected? Like, Trump is so like fun now that it's hard to believe that people actually thought this, but people were saying that gays were going to be thrown in concentration camps. Do you remember that? Like on Facebook, there are these frantic posts that gays are going to be thrown in concentration camps. Yes. Now that the most campy first ever pro-gay president is now in office.
Oh yeah. Oh yes, no, yeah, no. There was going to be there's going to be genocide. That word was used against Mexicans. I know that, and blacks, and and Nazi was used commonly. I mean, that was people weren't shy at all to use the word Nazi with Trump. They don't do it anymore. Notice, I mean, rarely. Only like the really hardcore, never Trumpers say that. But back then, back in the day, that was what you called him.
They use Nazi sympathizer for Elon now.
Yeah, true. Right. Yeah.
Do you see that Vanity Fair article
about Elon?
Yeah. Report: Ron DeSantis will formally announce his 2024 bid with Elon Musk because apparently David Duke wasn't available. And in the article, she calls him a Nazi sympathizer, a neo-Nazi sympathizer.
David Duke and Elon Musk don't usually come to mind at the same time. When I think one, I don't usually think the other.
And the only time I've ever seen David Duke on TV was on CNN.
They're calling Elon Musk a Nazi? I mean, because he has fewer speech restrictions on Twitter?
Well, probably because he likes certain memes. And if you do the guilt by association thing,
you mean Nazi memes?
Yeah, he likes Nazi memes.
No, I don't think so. He's a liberal, for God's sake. You know, these guys are old-fashioned liberals. They're like 1960s liberals or 1950s liberals. That's the jam for most of these guys. They are like law and order. Liberals were all about law and order until like the 80s or 70s. But even then they were back in, the Biden law bill. Biden crime bill was, under Clinton. That was a liberal bill. That was a liberal law. That was the harshest law and order law ever passed, not passed by a Republican. So, but yeah, these guys they like law and order. They're sympathetic to free trade.
They're 90s liberals. They're 90s liberals who have like an autistic sense of like logical consistency, and they want those rules that were explicitly stated back then to be what's at play.
What they are, actually, this is very simple, and this is all they are. They are pre-woke liberals.
Yeah,
they're liberalism got infected by wokism. Like I would say overtaken by it. Like what? Well, during Trump, basically, but I'd say in the last 10 years.
Yeah,
15.
It infected the media 10 years ago, and then it went insane under Trump.
Yeah, which is this different thing. It's a Maoist inflected liberalism, I think I would call it. It's a Maoist base to that ideology, the wokeism, but it kind of it services some liberal causes though, which makes it odd. It's like Maoism for inclusion. Like what? Except they're not really for inclusion. So yeah.
Well, again, it's the Maoist goal of just ramming everything over with like a steamroller and making everything homogenous and bland,
Yeah.
So all that can exist is the state ideology.
Yeah. I mean, the Mao suit's kind of cool though. The homogeneity, it's kind of cool looking when they have them out there doing the calisthenics, all, thousands of them out in the square first thing in the morning, doing all calisthenics simultaneously, all that unison stuff. That communist shit can look good. And if you live in Brooklyn, amid all the chaos of, New York City and yada, yada, that kind of well-ordered society can be quite attractive. I'm just saying, I understand why the bros in Brooklyn, dig them some Stalin.
I forget her name. I think it's a female artist, but one of the greatest visual artists, is from communist China and drew female soldiers in Maoist soldier garb, but like hypersexualized features protruding through the garb. So can
someone put that in the chat?
Yeah. I'll telegram you them later, but so it's incredibly fit bodies like protruding through the communist aesthetic.
I'll take it. Just give me a URL, it's fine, or just give me the name of the site. Yeah.
This is culture though, and they are like very well done oil paintings.
Damn, I've never even heard of that. That sounds awesome. Really looking forward to discovering that later.
Yeah.
When I'm doing my political research, for my course on China that's coming up. Actually, I'm thinking about doing that. But yeah. All right. Done with that shit. What's next?
Okay. Well,
the NAACP one, we didn't finish talking about that. Do you want to show a clip or something? Do you have that thing?
I mean, I can show that YouTube clip you had.
Yeah, show it. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Man. So you said the NAACP is stationed in Tampa too, right?
No. So there's a president and then there's a chairman of the board. Top two leadership. This is the president right here, and he's based in Jackson. They moved their headquarters to Jackson, which has become, by the way, the capital of black radicalism, because the mayor is this like socialist black nationalist guy who's been there for a while, and he's run the city into the ground, by the way. They didn't have drinking water for a while because of his mismanagement. But anyway, so the NAACP came to Jackson, I think, because this radical mayor hosts them now. So they've become, and one of the, it might not be in this clip, but the chairman of the NAACP, when he was defending this on MSNBC, cited the LGBTQ community as one of the victims too. So they're speaking on behalf. So again, here's the wokeness infecting very old left-wing organizations like the NAACP, which is more than 100 years old, man. There aren't any conservatives or organizations older than that in this country. So or white organizations. So yeah. Anyway, this guy's a president. The chairman, it turns out, of the board of the NAACP lives and was born in, and he's like my age. He's lived his entire life in Tampa, in the state of Florida.
Wow.
So yeah, watch this.
We are advising African Americans and others that if you travel to Florida, beware that your life is not valued, that we have a political landscape that could cause harm as we prepare for the 2024 elections to right-size the political landscape in the state of Florida.
First of all, there's wrong with anyone who wears glasses like that. There's something wrong. I mean, it's a very aggressive glasses style. You know.
Okay, I need to pull it back up now.
Angles. Look at the angles, everyone. I mean, this is a man who doesn't like you.
Yeah,
that's what he's announcing with those glasses. Because that shit'll cut you.
Yeah,
those frames, man. They're designed to cut and hurt. I'm serious. It's just whenever I see like a black politician like that talk, I just have flashbacks to my principals in all my schools. There were all these black guys like that who were all like these petty authoritarians. And I'm sorry, I went to school as a white kid in Oakland, so I get to say this.
As we prepare for the 2024.
Yeah, but the one thing about these laws, though, is like, if he was my
what happened? Did we?
No, sorry, I just I X'd out of the thing, so I had to pull it back up. But
okay,
yeah. But the thing about these laws that I like about them is, if I lived in Florida, I'd love to have any of these surface level laws that just piss off liberals, because it means that they won't move there, you know. But
exactly, that's the best argument. Yes, totally.
I'd love to have as many liberal scarecrows as possible, you know.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. But
do a little natural selection.
I can't pull this up, and you need to defend your choice of frames now.
Look at this fucking guy.
Yeah,
look at these fucking glasses.
All right, they are thick.
They are angles,
unnecessarily thick, and yeah, okay.
And the thickness. So you're right. Yeah, it's all very brutalist.
So John Wayne Gacy, you know, the killer serial clown, the serial killer clown.
Yeah. Great guy.
Most friendly clowns, they have rounded mouth makeup. His was pointed.
Ooh.
Yeah.
What was I saying? See, I'm telling you. Well done. Thank you for backing me up there.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want to say that about the president of the NAACP on YouTube, sir, but thanks a lot, Michael, for getting us not just like suspended. I remember I told you how a third of the people lynched in this country were white. I'm just saying. There's a tradition.
Well,
there's a history here.
I want to call out the Florida hate, like all the Florida like slander, because like there's that song on Family Guy. Everyone from Florida is stupid. Everyone from Florida is dumb. Like it's standard for liberals to shit on Florida when
we just Florida man.
We just
Florida
looked this up. Florida's #1 in education. DeSantis is bragging about it, but it's true.
#1, baby. It sounds pretty cool to live in. I think I would like it, and I really want to go there. I've been planning to go there, trying to go there for a while. I've never really been. I was in Fort Lauderdale for a minute a long time ago, so I've never really been. But I know it's there's all sorts of stuff there. It's very diverse, lots of different things going on.
Yes.
And I love the South. And I know it's not the South, but it's got the same climate, and I love that.
Like real diversity. It's got real diversity. And the
Super
more liberal
diverse.
Shit talk about Florida, it's just shows how ignorant they are, because it's so diverse. You've got a big black population. You've got a population of every kind of Hispanic, every kind of Latino. You've got the Jewish population. You've got
big
so much
Jewish population.
Yeah,
I know. It's crazy. Right. What other state besides New York has like a big Jewish and big black population, like of that size? I don't think any. I mean, maybe California, but probably not.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that's fascinating. And then the goddamn Latino culture is just off the complete chain. And they got, like, in Miami, as I understand it, there's like a neighborhood for every Latin American country.
Yeah, Ecuadorians.
Every Latin American country has a full-on neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, in Miami, that would be, and just you walk. Apparently, you can just walk from one country to the next. You know, walking through Miami, it'd be incredible.
Oh man, so a buddy of mine is a professor and visited University of Miami. There's a big music school there, Frost. And he said the only time he heard English was while he was at the university. So the only place in Miami that speaks English is the University of Miami.
Wow. Right. Yeah. I mean, again, this sounds like a liberal paradise.
Yeah.
Turns out they don't actually like hanging out with the minorities so much, do they?
Nope.
Weird. Yeah.
Yeah.
But let me continue to trash on black people too. I didn't finish that.
Okay.
There's more to be said against the black people. Yeah, no, this NAACP thing, come on now. The NAACP, even though I am a huge critic of racial liberalism of the civil rights era and the sort of the civil rights ideology, at least that was a very serious ideology. It had a real critique. It advanced real legislative remedies that really changed the world in ways that almost everyone agrees with, except for maybe Rand Paul. But I mean, it really did a lot, and some of it I think was not great. But overall, it's hard to not take it very seriously. And of course, King, I'm a huge critic of King too. But Lord have mercy, the guy was brilliant in so many ways, just truly brilliant in so many ways. And this shit. I mean, and the NAACP is, as I said, it's one of the oldest organizations of any kind in this country. It's the oldest black organization. It's the oldest left-wing organization, pretty much, and has an incredibly hallowed tradition. And lots of major political intellectuals and activists are part of it. W.E.B. Du Bois, all sorts of people. I mean, one of the scandals of the NAACP is that it's always been secretly white-led. From its founding, it was founded by white people.
Well, what kind of white?
You mean the Jewish kind?
Yeah.
Is that what you're getting at?
The whitest of whites.
Not actually the Jewish. I did the research on that. There's definitely disproportionate Jewish presence in the NAACP, but the founding, there was some WASPs. There was some good old Yankee WASP types. People who would have been suffragettes, a century before then, or abolitionists, that type. Their descendants. That's who founded the NAACP. Anyway, this is just absolutely embarrassing. It's infantilizing to black people. It's hideously infantilizing. It is the most insulting, condescending thing. I mean, Glenn Lowry must be throwing up all day long. I mean, this is treating black people worse than children, because children don't care if there's some law about what's being taught in the schools. I mean, that threatens you. I mean, that it's teaching about innate oppression. That's what CRT is. That's the part of CRT that they disallow, is teaching innate oppression, that someone is innately oppressed or the oppressor, which is a racism. That's what that component of the way CRT is taught is. It's racism. It's racism against blacks and whites, by the way. because you're saying anything that's innate like that, that's a racist claim. That's what he's disallowing. He's not disallowing any. It's just so Black people, their political class. I've never seen a crisis like this. There have been book after book after book over the last like 60 years, always about like the crisis of the Black intellectual, which was this classic book by a Black sociologist, Harold Cruz, back in the 1960s. And that's when the Black political class was full of geniuses, man. Like, that was Martin Luther King's time, right? Malcolm X's time, Stokely Carmichael's time. There were just James Baldwin's time. My God, like nowadays, there's not even like Jesse Jackson towers over these people.
You know what, man? I saw a clip of James Baldwin denouncing the movie The Color Purple for all the right reasons. It was beautiful. Back in '86. Yeah. Baldwin was smart, man.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't great on everything, but he was a master of the language, first of all, and an absolutely original writer. I mean, there's no one he has a very particular style and sort of attack in his writing, in his prose style that just it's his alone. And he was also writing at a time when he was a Black gay guy, in 1950s America, growing up in Harlem, which had its fair share of homophobia. Not just Black and gay, but Black, gay, and an intellectual and a poet, in Harlem in the 1950s, in New York City, in America. So, yeah. But nowadays, I mean, there's no one even Ta-Nehisi Coates is supposedly the next Baldwin.
Well, I feel sorry for him because he feels like he's under his shadow so much, and that has to be wearing on him. And I think it's pretty visible that if you look at like his attempts to write a novel, that he just can't live up to that, and he's always thinking about just Baldwin in particular, but just that class of intellectuals.
You know what Baldwin wrote a whole essay about? Black victimhood. And the whole essay was an attack, a screed, a polemic against Black people called the gates of paranoia. He talked about the dangers of Black people thinking that behind every door, every gate was some Klansman with a noose. And that's the way that Ta-Nehisi Coates writes about the United States in 2023. That's the way BLM talks about the United States in 2023. That's the way the entire Black political class talks. Because those fucking videos convinced everyone. God,
was it a Black officer that killed his friend in Baltimore?
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yes.
So even the Black officer
Ta-Nehisi Coates
that killed your friend is the Klan hood,
I think his best friend's name was Prince, or one of his friends' name was Prince. I think his name was Prince Jones, and he was murdered by a cop, but the cop was Black. That's the only person he knew of who got killed by a cop. The real scandal of Ta-Nehisi Coates, no one ever talks about this, but it's like the easiest thing to do. Go read his first memoir. This is his second. He's written 2 memoirs. His first memoir, written many years before then, about growing up in Baltimore. Guess what? How many times it mentions the police? Never. Never. Oh, all of a sudden the police don't exist? How many times does he mention experiencing any form of racism from white people? Never. How many times in both books does he talk about violence committed by Black people in his neighborhood? A lot. It's a phantom. White supremacy is a phantom, and most people believe in it. So phantoms can stay around for a long time. It's not going to be eternal. And I mean, just the concept, it's a complete phantom. That's all it is. But anyway, my point was more that Ta-Nehisi Coates is not dumb. I mean, I think he's quite talented in some ways. He does a good job of like imitating Baldwin in a way. He's like an impersonator of Baldwin, but his whole argument is for eternal Black victimhood. He says that white supremacy will always be here, it always has been here. He talks about it in this like supernatural terms, right? That the glowing orb coming out of the whatever it is, the amulet, something shit. Like it's got this eternal quality to it. We will always be racist, you and me, and he will always be the victim of that racism. And so that's called Afro-pessimism. It's actually a genre within Black literature and political theory. It's that white supremacy is eternal, and therefore all you can do is accommodate it. and constantly complain about it. That's your politics, is one of constant complaint, right? Because it'll never go away. You'll always be the victim, even if you're Ta-Nehisi Coates and get millions of dollars from white people annually for telling them that they're racist, and live in Paris, by the way. He also lives in Paris, where all the victimized people. James Baldwin lived in Paris. That's what he's completely impersonating James Baldwin. It's so fucking obvious. Except he's not gay. He has a wife and a bourgeois family. But
imagine being too insufferable for New York.
Yeah. Do you remember when they were worshiping at his feet, at Coates's feet, for a whole year there? It was like the year of Ta-Nehisi Coates. I mean, it was nuts, man.
It was the entire time I was in college. He was getting,
I think he was getting like $100,000 to speak at college campuses. Just stupid money. I mean, they were just now it's descended even further, right? I now miss the days of Ta-Nehisi Coates, because at least dude can write and he can like form a sentence and has some ideas that are intelligible. Now it's gone though. He's done. We're past Ta-Nehisi. Now we're in the era of Ibram Kendi.
Yeah,
I mean, we just dropped Jones, and we dropped several notches. Yeah, and and Nicole Jones, who's the dumbest motherfucker in the world. I mean, these people are just stone cold idiots. I mean, I hate Ta-Nehisi Coates' politics, but he's a smart guy, you know, and an interesting thinker. And I do pause to think about what he's saying.
No, yeah,
these people are,
especially back in the day.
And then there's, you want to go even lower? Go to Touré. Go look at Touré's Twitter. Man, just dumb. Not bad or wrong, just really dumb.
Well,
sorry.
Yeah. Well, the incentives, again, it's all about the incentives. The incentives are there for you to be as dumb as possible. It's a race to the bottom, but Coates had these great conversations with John McWhorter before he was super famous, when he was a rising star, and those were actually really productive conversations, and you could see that there was something there, and that they were trying, McWhorter was trying to get to the bottom of it. But the thing about the NAACP with the travel advisory is that they're trying to hit Florida where it hurts, which is tourism. Because most of the economy in Florida, well, a huge chunk of the economy in Florida is tourism. And the one issue that DeSantis was amazing on was being a governor that boldly stood against the COVID regime when that was happening. But some people are getting kind of cynical about it. And I'm starting to agree with them that pretty much any governor of Florida would probably open up sooner than everybody else, because Florida is so dependent on tourism.
Yeah. I wonder. I mean, that certainly could have been part of his calculation. Then again, it also has the second oldest population, meaning the most, and lots of obese people too. I don't know what the rate is, but it's got to be pretty damn high in Florida.
Yeah.
Away from the coast.
I mean, you could do what the governors and mayors in New York did and just murder your old people. But
that was good. Just stick them in the death shack.
But DeSantis gave him monoclonal antibodies. I think any responsible. I mean, that's the thing, is he did his job competently, which is the debate happening now with the Republicans. Is, do you want somebody who can competently run government, which I think DeSantis has proved, or do you want a fun troll like Trump? Did you see what Trump posted, his parody of the Twitter space?
Yeah,
with Hitler and Satan.
That's all anybody's talking about, is the technical glitches with this Twitter spaces. I'm like, really? What grade are we in? We don't want to talk about the substance? I mean,
it's the fly on Mike Pence's head all over again.
Right. Like, really? We're going to talk about the technical glitches? Now, there have been some points made that are about sort of like the horse race level of this shit, which I normally don't care about. But like, I don't see DeSantis winning simply because has almost no charisma. I mean, he's very technocratic, very sort of Asperger style, very, he's great at sort of reciting arguments about his policies. And those are often impeccable, and some of the best crafted arguments I've ever heard from a politician in this country. For sure. Not only do I like a lot of the policies, but he makes arguments for them that are very powerful and very intelligent. He's definitely a very, very smart guy. But he's just got no charm whatsoever. I mean, there's nothing there. He's got no humor, right? Which is like Trump's mastery. None. I mean, has DeSantis ever made anyone even smile? Right? Much less laugh. He's I don't know. I'd like to combine Trump and DeSantis. That's a candidate I could get behind if I could pick and choose. Because you want to show the clip about DeSantis talking there was not one question in the Twitter Spaces and no mention of, get this everyone, foreign policy. Nothing. And David Sachs, again, brother, I love you, but come now. Because David Sachs cares a lot about Ukraine and he cares a lot about foreign policy and he knows a lot. I can't believe that they let him, a candidate for president. People forget all the time that that's the main responsibility of the president is foreign policy, conducting foreign policy. That's the main thing they're there for. They're the commander in chief, according to the Constitution, according to the founding fathers. And how do you get no questions about foreign policy and by the way, when there's an active proxy war going on?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, when we're a global superpower with bases everywhere, really, there's no question about that. When we have military bases in almost every country, like what? So anyway, play this fucking clip from DeSantis.
Yeah, and Trump and Elon only let basically DeSantis supporters into space. So like Steve Deese.
I noticed.
Yeah, and like you could see Michael Tracy. You know, all of our favorite journalists were in that space listening, requesting to speak. You know, but
yeah.
Yeah,
I'm not pleased with David's.
It would have been so easy to turn this into like an amazing, free speech proof of concept of what Twitter is supposed to be. This could have gone on for like an hour or two, and you could have had some of the best journalists really giving substantive questions to it.
Amazing. It could have been amazing. Totally right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But they played it safe, which is probably the only way it could happen.
Yep.
But yeah, he went on Fox News afterwards, and Trey Gowdy finally asked him about Ukraine.
If you are elected president, you may be the first one in a while to have worn the uniform. How would you address the ongoing war in Eastern Europe between Russia and Ukraine on day one of a Ron DeSantis presidency?
Well, first, I think what we need to do as a veteran is recognize that our military has become politicized. You talk about gender ideology. You talk about things like global warming that they're somehow concerned, and that's not the military that I served in. We need to return our military to focusing on commitment, focusing on the core values and the core mission. That would be something that I could take care of on day one. There'll be a new sheriff in town as commander-in-chief, and I think you'll see recruiting start to get back to where it needs to be because people don't want to join a woke military, and I think it's been really, really problematic. Look, in terms of what's going on over in Eastern Europe, I'd like to see a settlement of this. I do not want to see a wider war. I think it's completely unknowable what it will look like in January of 2025. But I would not want to see the United States with our troops get enmeshed in a war in Russia or in Ukraine.
So that is the sound of tires screeching for me. That is me slamming on the brakes. I've been saying a lot of good things about DeSantis. And I do very much like a lot of his policy proposals. I like the way he argues for them. But this is a deal breaker. And I will urge everyone to vote against him. And if they're going to vote in the Republican primary, to absolutely vote for Trump, because Trump, as we know, unequivocally came out for ending the war immediately. The greatest statement by a president on foreign policy I've ever heard in my life, ex-president.
Yeah.
And of anyone who's ever been president, it's the best statement on foreign policy ever made. I will say that forever. There's no question about it. Also, it was the way he said it. It was just perfect. So vote for Trump if you're going to vote. And here's what's going on. So you can do a little research now. So we now know DeSantis actually has a history of being pro-Ukraine, pro-EU.
Before you get into this, we gotta talk about how like he immediately starts talking about gender ideology and climate change first. Sidesteps the question completely.
I was going to explain it. Yeah.
This is how they control you guys. Like you argue about these stupid domestic issues all day. You get your panties in a bunch about your trans kids and your climate change and whatnot. And they're wokifying the military, like, and you're completely just horse blinders away from anything that matters substantially about foreign policy or anything real.
I don't think that's because DeSantis is like primarily a culture warrior, that he's like obsessed with this stuff. And no,
it just works though. It just works.
Well, no. I think this is what's happened. So we know when he was in Congress in 2013, he co-signed a bill basically pledging support to Ukraine's entry into the EU and, you know, into the Western
NATO,
world and NATO. So, you know, he's an Atlanticist. I mean, he signed the goddamn thing, his signatures on it in Congress. So like, that's it. He also said something, he was asked by reporters about the war right when it started. And he talked about how brave and inspiring the Ukrainian soldiers were, which, you know, sure, I get that, but that's all he said. So clearly the guy is, given his history of writing that, co-sponsoring that bill. Yeah. So he's going to be terrible on foreign policy. That's pretty much guaranteed. And he knows that his base is David Sachs. And David Sachs has my politics on Ukraine and your politics on Ukraine. He's for immediate and Trump's politics on Ukraine, most importantly.
Well, also, the public is historically anti-war. Like George Bush in 2000 was an anti-war candidate. He wanted a humble foreign policy. And Obama in 2008 was selling the American people on, we're going to end the stupid Iraq war. Like, anti-war candidates win.
Yeah, during elections. Well, that's tricky, but yeah, I mean, wars have also really helped presidents a lot, right? It helped Bush tremendously. It helped Roosevelt tremendously.
You're anti-war when you get elected, and you're pro-war during your re-election. Right. We're in the middle of a war. We can't change course now.
The only one it really hurt was LBJ, right? I mean, Lincoln died a hero. So anyway, so yeah, this is horrendous, but it's not because he was dishonest. It's not because he's obsessed with culture issues. It's that he's a fucking Atlanticist, globalist, typical humanitarian interventionist, same old story. He's just like, he might very well have Tony Blinken be his Secretary of State, you know, Jake Sullivan be his national security advisor. So yeah, everyone should check that out. Go Google DeSantis in Ukraine. You'll see it. There's in 2013, there was a bill in Congress about this. So it's too bad. It's a shame, because I'd really like to combine DeSantis's domestic policies, mostly, I don't love all of them, but mostly, with Trump on foreign policy. I don't love their immigration positions, although, you know, because I'm an open borders guy. But I'm also, it's not like a burning issue for me at this moment. I don't know, maybe it should be, but I guess I'm just, the manipulation of these people by the Democrats and then their punishment by the Republicans when they get here is just a gross thing. I mean, I don't like either one. If we had open borders, there would be neither the manipulation by Democrats nor the punishment by Republicans. Yeah. So
well, the libertarian point is the caveat of open borders, but no welfare state and no.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. I've never understood why we can't just have an identification system where you have to have like a good, solid government ID to get any kind of welfare. I don't get it. Like, right. That's doable. Or vote. Right. That's very doable. I mean, now the good argument is that they still use the public infrastructure and, you know, there's wear and tear that they put on it just from using the roads and the electrical grid and all that. Which I get, but that to me isn't enough to stop people from moving across space. I mean, when you have like, what right exactly? What did you do, American, to have the right to stop a Mexican from living in California? Like, I mean, what moral basis is there for that? I mean, it's just amazing. Like, why? Because you happen to be born in this country, and it happens to be more powerful than Mexico, and therefore we get to dictate things like this. And I mean, it's just what? Now I know that the United States has by far the most liberal immigration policies of any country on earth, and far, far more liberal than all the brown countries, by the way. You know, but still, I don't get it. Why I, Thad, have the right, the power to stop a Mexican family from living in California? Like, it's just wild to me. I don't get it.
And the big thing that libertarians are missing or forgetting, that I've been saying this all the time, they're losing the plot with DeSantis. Like, DeSantis was so good because he was a governor, not because he was president. His policies are great as governor of Florida, as an example of how federalism is supposed to work, not for a top-down president.
I want him to be governor of California. That's what he should do next, not be president. He would do so much good as governor of California. Can you imagine? God, that'd be awesome.
Move to California for 90 days or whatever it takes to be eligible. And
talk about owning the libs.
Yeah,
because he might
literally.
He would have a chance in California. I think he could win because, you know, California elected Schwarzenegger, Republican, Duke Majian, Republican, Pete Wilson, a Republican. So the so-called moderate Republicans can win. And I think DeSantis is sort of seen as a radical by idiots who don't understand things, but he's such a technocrat. It's hard to see him as a radical if you listen to him for very long. And I could see him getting some of the blue base, actually. And well, that's what he's going for. One of the things that's interesting, I guess, is that right now you see with RFK and DeSantis, kind of the two main outsider candidates, you see Republicans, you see right-wingers going to RFK, and you see the sort of like lefty liberal types going to DeSantis a bit. You know, people like with DeSantis, it's around COVID. Like COVID got a lot of Democrats to go to DeSantis, or DeSantis got a lot of Democrats to go to him.
They all vacationed there in Florida and realized it was bullshit. Everybody vacationed in Florida during COVID.
No, there was just COVID was kind of like a cross-partisan thing, like where there was a lot, you know, the whole dissident class, which was a lot of people, turns out, right? You know, there were plenty of like lifelong liberals, Democrats who thought this was nuts, you know, that we shouldn't be putting masks on kids and shit like that. It wasn't entirely ideological. So, I mean,
but also, I mean, you have to admit the practicality of like everybody who was afraid of COVID. There's so many of them who spent a week in Florida and saw that life was completely normal there. And that broke the fog for them.
And much nicer too.
Yeah, much nicer. that they're like, you know, that really, if we could choose to, we could live normally if we wanted to, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was tempted. I was tempted to go there during that because it was brutal here. I mean, I'm still scarred by that experience. People don't realize how bad. So the Bay Area was the worst place in the entire country for COVID restrictions. It was nuts. And we had masks and lockdowns longer than anybody. We had more severe lockdowns and masking requirements than anybody. We had fewer pauses in the masking. I mean, we had it was horrible. And the culture just was nuts about it. I mean, I saw statistics for the masking rates. You know, they have these people actually would count people on the street and see how often they were masked. It was consistently in every city in the Bay Area. It was well over 90%. And there were several cities that had 99% reporting, like masking all the time in public, you know? So people masked on hiking trails, people masked while bicycling. It was, anyway, DeSantis was a beacon of hope in that. And I remember loving him too. I've totally gotten over that now. I have no feelings for him whatsoever, but I have to think back. Yeah, but I do remember he was great then. And thank God. He was like
the hippie utopia of COVID is over if you want it, you know?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Right. Just right. Just think differently and it'll be over. Yep. Really clear. Yeah. And I think he was, you know, not just the only governor in the States. I guess Kristi Noem also was pretty good. But DeSantis was certainly stood apart. I mean, it wasn't just that he stood apart among other governors. Was there another political leader anywhere in the world who made a stand like that against lockdowns and masking? I don't think so. Not in Europe. Well,
Sweden, but Sweden was still technocratic about it, and
they were still more restrictive than Florida. I'm pretty sure. Well, I guess Sweden, but I don't know any politician there in particular. I'm sure there was one.
Yeah,
but that's about it, though. Boy, which is really terrifying when you think about the unity of the ruling class of the earth. How the political classes in each country merge in many ways, even though we have BRICS now. But around COVID, they were almost unanimous. Except, well, I guess not the third world, actually. I think the third world was way less compliant.
Well, it was impossible. They would have starved to death if they had shut down their economies,
The fact that, and RFK talks about this all, I mean, one of the most shocking, stunning facts about COVID is the extremely low infection rates in the third world. Like, they did almost no restrictions, almost no lockdowns, very little masking, and like almost no one died from COVID in the third, where there's like the worst medical care. is where people didn't die of COVID because they didn't lock down. Isn't that enough to, these were people who were already often sickly and malnourished, right? And had the worst doctors and hospitals in the world. And those are the ones who didn't die. But Americans died more than any other country on earth.
Yeah.
Greater rates.
Fresh air and sunlight. That's what they had.
They had a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Vitamin, is that D?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Africans get a lot of vitamin D. True.
Mm-hmm. So, all right. We're running low on time. Bakhmut has fallen.
Yes.
We need to talk about this.
Finally, 6 months. 6-month siege. Not quite World War II levels, when you had like 3-year sieges of Leningrad and Moscow and Stalingrad. But like,
there's no audio to this clip, but I'm going to play it just so
it's
you
great.
can see the devastation that was happening there. Because it speaks for itself, but completely bombed.
Just right there. Look at that. Yeah.
And since October of last year, 224 days. Yeah.
This is the Wagner Group. This is the private military organization that's been doing most of the fighting in Bakhmut for Russia, led by this guy Prigozhin, who's this maniac, crazy man, fascinating figure, but just utterly wild. But yeah, they've been doing for 6 months. These guys have been fighting in Bakhmut, 6 months, laying siege to the city. And they finally took it at noon on Saturday. And now the question is, what does this mean? And most of us on sort of my side of this issue have assumed that it is of immense strategic importance. First of all, we've always known that it's a transportation hub and has been for the Ukrainian military. So there's multiple key routes that go right through Bakhmut, and the Ukrainian military was using Bakhmut as a hub. So that was clear, although, you can create a new hub in another city, eventually. It's not like it. But there's also enormous salt mines. These are the largest underground rooms in the world are underneath Bakhmut. And we know that Wagner Group found like a huge cache of weapons in there. Now, I don't know. They haven't announced finding anything else, but there was a lot of assumptions about these salt mines and these huge underground storage areas being used for some military purpose. But no one said that, so I guess that didn't happen. So it's not entirely clear to me that this is necessarily the end of the war, although I've been assuming, like most people, that it would be when they took Bakhmut. Also, just the fact that the Ukrainians were defending it so mightily for so long, and how the West seemed to be staking everything on this. And I mean, when Zelensky spoke before Congress, he presented a flag or something like from the fighters in Bakhmut to Nancy Pelosi. So Bakhmut's been sent, even, normies who don't follow this conflict know the word Bakhmut now, which is now Artemovsk, by the way. They changed the name to a Russian name. But so we'll see what this means now that, simultaneously, Ukraine has been preparing for this counteroffensive for months now. And they've been announcing that they will have a spring counteroffensive. Now it's almost the end of the spring. Then they've said it's going to be the summer counteroffensive. And of course, Zelensky's been going all over the world raising money for this.
Do you see Biden at G7 say, "Oh, we're not sure what this really means in Bakhmut," not even acknowledging that it had actually fallen, that 100,000 Russians died, and so the situation on the ground has kind of changed, completely sidestepping it. Yeah,
but I would expect to gain a lot of clarity on this issue within a week, because I'm pretty sure Putin's going to move fast now. He's got to, because they've been building up the forces Ukraine has with this counteroffensive, and they just got F-16s, although that's going to be months to train those guys to fly those things. Although now they're saying there's going to be NATO pilots flying them, which gets really close, really, really close to WW3, baby. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Poland has been talking about intervening in Western Ukraine and then basically annexing Western Ukraine and creating a new nation state that's part Polish and part Ukrainian. That's a serious proposal in Polish politics. Poland is a member of NATO. So as soon as any Russian troop fires on a Polish soldier, World War III begins.
Isn't that funny that Poland is going to annex Ukraine?
Right. Payback, baby.
Instead of Russia annexing Poland, which is what everybody says, Poland is going to
payback. Yeah, payback. I mean, a lot of what's going on in this war is absolutely payback for what went on in World War II and the Cold War, right? So remember, even though I have all sorts of criticisms of the Ukrainian government currently. Like these are the people who lived, or at least their parents lived, under communist rule, like direct Soviet rule. They were part of the Soviet Union, forcibly, and we all know how that was. So, you know, and as I said, I'm descended from Ukrainian Jews who lived in Odessa, and who got out, you know, just before, like during the pogroms, but before the communism.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of grievances, you know, and a lot of the anti-Russianness is actually sort of anti-communism, sort of carried over and made into a racism. But the origins are understandable to some extent, of course, right? Anyway, so it's the thing that everyone needs to be aware of is that they keep getting close to tripping the World War III wire. So Ukraine they've now launched 5 or 6 attacks inside Russia. They've all been pretty minor, but there was a fairly significant attack just a week ago in Belgorod, which was like some kind of detachment of, I think they even had armored vehicles, like a half a dozen or so armored vehicles, and something like 50 to 100 troops who were all soldiers who were apparently Russian of origin, but fighting for the Ukrainian side. And they just stormed into this town, as I understand it, and had a firefight and got killed and did very little damage. I don't think they killed anybody. Then there have been attacks. There have been drone attacks on military bases inside Russia. Then there was, of course, the drone attack on the Kremlin. This is obviously exceedingly provocative. Imagine, what did we do when there was a balloon flying over the United States? We went nuts. You know, imagine if there was a rocket attack like that inside the United States. What would we do to our opponent then? And if Russia does ever respond to these provocations, which they are, you can tell these are all deliberate attempts to get Russia to overreact, because once they overreact, then Victoria Nuland has all the ammunition she wants to persuade the whole public that we've got to go to war with our boys on the ground against Russia because they are the evil empire. So, and Zelensky pretty clearly is authorizing increasingly provocative attacks to get the West to intervene. He has said himself, we want boots on the ground from NATO. You know, I mean, he wants American boys on the ground, and girls now, since we're a diverse army. No, it's very close now. So they're also planning this huge counteroffensive. Most of their elite soldiers are dead. Half the male population has gone or is dead. They've lost somewhere between 100 and 300,000 troops. Most of those are their best fighters. They're drafting. I've seen pictures of these guys who look older than me, man. Like they're guys in their 50s, way in their 50s, who are fighting. And then they have a lot of teenagers, and you see them dragging guys off the streets, literally, cops, to conscript them into the Ukrainian army. And Russia's got a huge reserve force, hundreds of thousands they can draw up at any time, ready to fight. And a significant number are battle tested because of Chechnya and Georgia. So even some Afghanistan veterans still around, who are generals. But it's extremely dangerous, and there seems to be no way that Ukraine can win this counteroffensive unless NATO troops are on the ground. So basically, everybody who's pro-Ukraine right now is trying to figure out a way to essentially force the West to intervene with its own armies, to do something, to provoke Russia into doing something. And Russia clearly knows this. They're like a huge sleeping bear, and I use that metaphor deliberately, who's kind of
sleeping
like
bear on a unicycle with a bottle of vodka.
They're like swatting away flies.
Yeah,
like they're swatting away these flies. Like Ukraine keeps launching these mosquito attacks against them, and the bear could go crazy and like tear up a tree or something, but it doesn't. So yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know. The thing is, this counteroffensive is coming, and they now have a new whole batch of fancy new weapons to use against the Russians, and it just depends on how many more Ukrainian boys they want to kill. To degrade the Russian military in a war they know they can't win. Again, everyone is saying that they can't win. They can't get back that territory without NATO troops on the ground. So everybody needs to watch constantly for anything that would provoke Russia to do some sort of overreaction. That's been a deliberate plan. And so that's what this Belgorod incursion was.
Mm-hmm. And then when that happens, call it out as not worth it. You know, at the end of the day, whatever it is, not worth it. Yeah.
I mean, I was going to say, imagine sending your son to fight for Ukraine, but some people actually have. In fact, even RFK's son.
Yeah. We showed it, remember?
He's a foreign legionnaire in Ukraine. Oh, that's right. Yeah, that's right. We showed it. I forgot.
Yeah.
That blew me away. I was like, man, the Kennedys are so crazy. Like, that is the craziest family ever.
Real quick, I got to show this. This is how I'm showing super chats from Rumble. I'm just copying and pasting them. But from Fuego de Bacero, donation to the cause. He lived in the Bay Area for 13 years. No idea how Thad stays there.
I have retreated to the suburbs. That's what I did that about 3 months ago. So I'm no longer in Oakland, and I'm not thrilled with that because I hate the suburbs and I find them soulless, and I don't understand how anyone could live here, like for long term. But I also don't miss Oakland. I mean, there's been video after video. I'm sure a lot of you guys have seen. Oakland's kind of become the new Chicago, almost. We have murders every week, and it's not a big city, by the way. It's like a fraction of the size of Chicago, but we have Oakland's in the top 10, I think, in murder rate in the country. We're like the St. Louis of the West. And the sideshows, our lovely contribution to popular culture, the sideshow, which now it's showing up in all the cities, as I understand it, these horrendous, stupid ass, whatever you call this, like doing donuts in an intersection to block all the traffic while you're showing off your car, people standing around it, crowding around it, slapping the back of the car that's spinning around, and people getting hit and getting thrown into the air and smashing. Yeah. So that's Oakland, man. And I'm good.
I was walking out of the A's stadium and I saw some people driving on sidewalks for fun.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, and the cops, it's very clear, will not answer your call if there's anything serious going down. And I've said this here, I've seen cops literally watch sideshows and do nothing. There's videos of that too. There's videos of Oakland PD like just driving through a sideshow and continuing on, not even bothering to say anything. And, in terms of violent crime and stuff, I had my catalytic converter stolen like everybody in Oakland has. It's just nuts. The robbery rate is through the roof. And then San Francisco is even worse, as, I'm sure a lot of people know, just horrific shit's going on there. It's truly dangerous. Like downtown San Francisco, it's just about the only place in the country, in a major city, a central major city, that's actually, I would say, don't go there because it's dangerous. I mean, there's no part of Manhattan, even Harlem, even Harlem is not that bad. It's really dangerous. It's like Living Dead over there.
Well, yeah, it's felt like Taxi Driver a little bit.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, the commercial vacancy rate in the office buildings in downtown San Francisco, that very famous, gorgeous skyline you can see from the Bay Bridge as you're driving in, right? All those giant office buildings there's 35% vacancy rate right now. And it's probably actually higher than that. That's depression level. You only see that in an economic crisis. And so what that means is the downtown is empty. If you go to San Francisco right now, downtown San Francisco, you won't see another person, except you might see some schizophrenic guy defecating in the street, but you won't see another person.
There's one more thing I wanted to mention, that G7 summit. There's all these Biden gaffes that are too innumerable to display, but the big story I think from that is Lula getting stiffed. He was supposed to meet with Zelensky, and Zelensky just, like, the whole point of the meeting was, the whole point of that conference was get Lula all the way from Brazil to what was it, Hiroshima, Japan.
Yeah.
Right. Which is shocking that they held it there.
Well, yeah. So the best part is that Zelensky invited Lula to meet with him.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then stands him up. And, Brazil and Japan are pretty far apart. That's kind of a long flight for Lula. Yeah. Apparently he was just like steaming mad on the flight home, of course. But, the other thing that happened is that during Zelensky's speech, he said that Bakhmut was just like Hiroshima. And then also one of the great things about Hiroshima,
physically at this point, yes.
And you know how the Hiroshima Museum presents this, and how the official American narrative is that a bomb was dropped An atom bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. That's how they say it. Was never caused by anybody. There's no entity that actually dropped the bomb. It just the bomb was dropped. And that's
Words
how
were said.
And that's how so Zelensky's speech never mentions that the United States actually dropped the bomb and incinerated all those children.
Yeah.
And then did it a few days later in Nagasaki and incinerated even more children and women and civilian men and all that. But he says it's just like Bakhmut. Bakhmut is just like Hiroshima. Really something, you know. I mean, Bakhmut has been one of the most cynical. You know what it actually reminds me of? It actually reminds me of those World War I battles where the commanding officer knew that the armistice was about to be signed, you know, and he knew that, you know, he had no chance of winning this particular position, but he still sent them, you know, in some forward assault with bayonets against some machine guns because it would gain like 50 yards of ground.
Yeah.
To lengthen the border a little bit. And then he'd get credit for that. You know, I expanded the border of whatever France or Germany and then like, you know, 1,000 of his men would die. Horrible deaths, you know, that's what this is. But it's over even less than that because they're not going to get that territory back. This is a gamble that NATO will go all in with its own troops, go to World War III and actually eliminate Putin's government and install a pro-Western, pro-Ukraine, pro-Western, pro-American government. That's what's going on here. So this is the stakes are now at that level where the pro-Ukraine side actually needs World War III. Hadn't actually thought of that until just now, but that's what they have now done. They've clearly decided that the only way for them to win is World War III. They've now said it. NATO troops on the ground is World War III.
They're banking on it, yeah.
I mean, that's just, why are we not shouting about that all day long instead of talking about drag queens or climate change or any of these idiotic things that people make up or white supremacy? This is where everybody dies, guys. This is where everybody dies. This is bad for everybody. Everybody dies if we have an actual World War III that goes nuclear.
Well, yeah. We got to wrap up though. We will be discussing all this and more at Icarus Fest in person with all of your favorite journalists, June 8th through 11th, for real.
Well, I mean, it's going to be the best analysis on the Ukraine war and the outcome of it that you will ever find. I mean, it's just completely stacked lineup. Max Blumenthal, Aaron Mate, Michael Tracy, Sam Husseini, Clint Russell, and me. We're going to have all day to talk about that and the war on terror too, the Middle East, and Meg Smaker, the maker of Jihad Rehab, and we're going to watch that day. It's going to be amazing. But yeah,
Gray Zone, live from the end of the world.
Right. It's a dark motif, but you know, nonetheless, I think it's apt. So yeah, IcarusFest.com, boy. All the people who are coming are now talking about it on Twitter. It's been great, and their fans are snapping up tickets and flooding it. So definitely get it now. We don't actually control the ticket sales because we're working with the Williams Center. So I would definitely get on that. Go to IcarusFest.com.
And if you can make it for any point, June 8th through 11th, for anything, head out there. We've itemized it day by day, pretty much almost hour by hour. Everybody's saying in the comments, God, I wish I could go. You could probably find a way to go for even just one evening.
Yeah. Oh, well, in terms of the price, anybody can afford to go to Icarus Fest because there's a ticket for everybody at pretty much any price point. And you can go to pretty much any one of the events. It's, as Michael said, it's all been segmented. So you can buy a ticket for a single event at Icarus Fest, or you can buy an entire weekend.
Thursday through Sunday, there's got to be something you can see.
I mean, comedy night with, you know, I mean, we have the most amazing lineup ever. So yeah, I mean, just that alone, that's Friday night. It's an incredible lineup. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Oh, I mean,
because you're the bigger comedy fan. I mean, I'm a big fan too.
I mean, I'm a huge Rich Voss fan, so it's gonna be a blast to see him. He's so sharp, so sharp. One of the last of that Colin Quinn, Opie and Anthony era of the Comedy Cellar guys.
We just added him, which was amazing. Like, we didn't think we were gonna get anybody like that, but yeah. But Kurt Metzger, I mean, everybody's like talking about Kurt Metzger, and like Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate didn't even know he was going to be at this until like last week, and they were talked about it on their show, how excited they were, because
they talked about it on Jimmy Dore,
right? Because they're like colleagues on Jimmy Dore. So yeah, yeah, no, it's gonna be amazing. And Lou Perez, who a lot of people know, he's gonna be the MC, and he's gonna be doing a set too. And yeah, no, it's amazing. Like the political comedy, the general comedy. I mean, it's gonna be stupendous on Friday. And then yeah, we got Jack the Perfume Nationalist. Man, his fans are stoked for this. They bought a bunch of tickets already. There's gonna be a big TPN contingent there, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's totally the biggest event of the year, and everyone should come. Plus, oh, there's going to be a cash bar, by the way. Yeah. First event I've done that has alcohol at it. So, man alive. Yeah.
Yeah, that Gone with the Wind with Jack all day. Like, I can't imagine on a Sunday afternoon in the beautiful Rutherford, New Jersey, in a classic theater that probably showed it as it was premiering, right? So yeah.
If you're at all a TPN fan, Perfume Nationalist fan,
or a cinephile of any sort.
Well, yeah, but yeah, I mean, this is the event you've dreamed of. Because I mean, when I started listening to him and I heard his little thing about Gone with the Wind, I thought of that. I was like, God, what it would be like to actually watch that movie with Jack, you know? Because to get his he's just got such a stunning radical critique of it, and that's kind of why we're doing this. So yeah, no, it's incredible. The lineup is just off the chain. We've got libertarians, got Jeremy Kauffman, who we've talked about in the show, who's just ran for Senate the last round.
Yeah.
And made a big splash, by the way, being sort of a guerrilla campaigner and doing these really hilarious campaign videos that were all comedy. Those were underappreciated, I thought. I thought those were really excellent.
Yeah.
And I mean, I liked it because he and I have a sort of similar sensibility, which is we don't give a fuck, you know, generally. Like we give less of a fuck, I think, than most people about things. And so I think the problem was like a virtue, like, because they were so edgy. They were just a little too edgy to get a mass audience. That's all it was, you know, but the edginess was the brilliance. So yeah, what can you do? Being too radical. Anyway, IcarusFest.com. If you want to join us, Michael and I are going to go right now to Unregistered Live, which is our weekly hangout with patrons of the show. And it's a Zoom meeting. Oh, yeah. Promo code. You get how much off?
I think that's 10%. That one's 10%.
10% for Icarus 2023. That's
so
yeah, use that code when you go to IcarusFest.com. If you want to become a patron of the show and hang out with us after the show, go to this patreon.com/unregistered. And if you join up at any level, you get access to the URL to the link to the Zoom meeting. So do that, and we'll hopefully see some of you there. It's very fun. It's totally uncensored. It's not recorded, and you can be absolutely anonymous and faceless. We don't have to know who you are at all. So don't worry about that. And that's it, man. Thank you. This was fun.
Cool.
Good stuff.
It was a blast. Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Peace.
See you soon.
See you over.
Bye.
Bye.